In a locked garage, a man switched on a $20,000 spinning laser instrument. He wasn't a physicist. He had no lab, no committee. He built this machine for one single reason, to finally prove a point. The point he wanted to prove was that the earth beneath your feet is flat. He flipped the switch. The gyroscope began to spin exactly as designed. Within an hour, the numbers on the display started doing something he didn't expect. Whatever this machine was telling him, it was not what he came here to hear. But to understand why that number terrified him, you have to go back further. His name was Bob Knodel. He ran a YouTube channel called Glowbusters. For years, Knodel argued that satellites, gravity, and rotation were an elaborate lie. In 2017, he stood on stage at a conference built entirely around that lie. It was called the Flat Earth International Conference, held that year in North Carolina. Knodel wanted something no Flat Earth speaker had ever brought to that stage: hard data. So, he spent $20,000 on a machine built for aerospace engineers, not hobbyists. Here's the strange part. This argument is not new. It is over 2,000 years old. In 240 BC, a librarian in Egypt settled the exact same question with a stick. His name was Eratosthenes. He ran the largest library in the ancient world. He heard that in one city, at noon on one day, a well cast no shadow at all. In his own city, at that exact same moment, his stick cast a very real shadow. That tiny difference in angle was the only clue he needed. If the ground were flat, both shadows should have matched perfectly. They didn't. Using nothing but that angle and the distance between the two cities, he did the math. He calculated the circumference of the entire planet. Nussettle, Nuscraft, just geometry. His answer was within a few % of the number we measure today. That was 2,300 years before anyone had ever seen a photograph of Earth from space. So, the shape of the planet was never really the mystery. The real question is why, 23 centuries later, people still need to relitigate it. And Bob Knodel was about to relitigate it with the most expensive tool anyone had tried yet. You've probably run a version of this experiment yourself without realizing it. Stand at any beach and watch a ship sail toward the horizon. It won't shrink evenly into a tiny dot. It disappears from the bottom up. The hull vanishes first. The mast stays visible the longest. On a flat surface, distance alone can never do that. Only curvature can. You can test this with a $50 zoom lens. Zooming back in won't bring the hull back. That single detail already settles the argument for most people who actually check it. But Bob Knodel wasn't interested in a $50 lens. He wanted his own proof. A gyroscope is a spinning wheel that fights to keep pointing in one direction. Point at, lock it in place, and walk away. If the Earth is flat and standing still, that gyroscope should never move again. If the Earth is a sphere spinning once every 24 hours, the math predicts something specific. The gyroscope should drift exactly 15 degrees every single hour. Not roughly, exactly. Knodel and his team built a sealed enclosure so nothing outside could interfere. They switched it on, sealed the room, and waited for the numbers to settle. 1 hour later, they checked the readout together. The gyroscope had drifted, not randomly, by almost exactly 15 degrees. That number is not what a flat, motionless Earth was supposed to produce. It is precisely what a rotating globe predicts, down to the exact figure. According to people close to the project, the room went quiet for a moment. Knodel later admitted, on camera, that the result was hard to accept. He didn't reject the number outright. He went looking for a reason to dismiss it. The team's new theory. Maybe something in the sky was interfering with the machine. So they built a second enclosure, this time blocking magnetic fields entirely. They ran the exact same test again, inside the new shielded container. The result came back identical. 15 degrees an hour, again. But that was only the surface of what this story would end up proving. Because Knodel wasn't the only person at that conference running an experiment. His colleague had a different plan entirely, a laser and a 4-mile canal. His name was Jaron Campanella. He co-hosted the same YouTube channel as Knodel. His logic was simple. On a flat surface, a laser beam travels in a straight line. Place 3 measuring posts along that line, all cut to the exact same height. If the world is flat, the laser should hit every single post at the same height. If the world curves, the middle post should show the beam sitting lower than expected. It's the same core idea Eratosthenes used, just with a laser instead of a shadow. Campanella was confident. He'd waited years to finally run this test in the open. The first attempt failed almost immediately, but not for the reason you'd think. Over nearly 4 miles, the laser beam simply spread out too wide to read. So the team went back, adjusted the equipment, and tried again months later. This time, they didn't use a laser at all. They used a light and a camera. 2 sheets, each with a hole cut at exactly the same height, stood far apart. The idea: shine light through the first hole and see if it reaches the second. On camera, they switched the light on at exactly the height of both holes. Nothing appeared on the other camera. No light came through at all. Campanella's own reaction, caught on camera, was a single quiet word: interesting. Someone off camera gave him a simple instruction: raise the light higher. He lifted the light well above the height of both holes. The moment he did, the light instantly appeared on the far camera. Raising the light compensated for exactly the amount of curvature the distance predicted. In other words, the light behaved as if it were traveling over a curved surface. 2 different experiments, built by 2 different believers, produced the exact same answer. Neither man set out to prove the Earth was round. Both of them just did. This is the part where you'd expect the story to end. Belief meets evidence, belief updates. But the worst part of this story hadn't even started yet. Neither Knodel nor Campanella changed their conclusion. Not that day. Not ever. Knodel's team moved on to a new theory, shielding the gyroscope inside a rare metal. The plan was to block whatever unknown force they believed was faking the rotation. Campanella, for his part, kept describing the light experiment as inconclusive. A documentary crew had been filming both experiments from the very beginning. The film was called Behind the Curve, directed by Daniel J. Clark. It premiered in 2018 and reached Netflix's global audience the following year. Millions of people who had never heard of Knodel or Campanella suddenly watched them fail. But here's the number that should actually surprise you. The movement kept growing anyway. Flat Earth conferences continued after 2018 in multiple countries, with paying attendees. Tickets, merchandise, streaming channels, and speaking fees all became part of the business. None of that required the Earth to actually be flat. It only required an audience. And audiences don't pay for correct answers. They pay for belonging to something. Psychologists studying this kind of belief call it identity-protective cognition. It means facts don't just get evaluated. They get evaluated against what you'd lose. For Knodel, changing his mind meant losing a community, an audience, and an identity. This is where the story stops being about the Earth at all. It becomes a story about a machine every single human brain already carries inside it. That machine has one job: protect the beliefs your identity is already built on. It doesn't care whether the belief is about gravity, politics, a diet, or a relationship. The mechanism runs the exact same way every time evidence threatens something you've built your life on. Step 1. The evidence arrives. Step 2. You feel a flash of discomfort, not curiosity. Step 3. Your brain doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, how do I explain this away? That's exactly the sequence you watched happen with the gyroscope in that garage. The evidence arrived at 15 degrees, an hour. The discomfort arrived a second later. The explaining away arrived as a new enclosure, then a new theory, then another one. Businesses have learned to build entire products around exactly this loop. News channels supple political movements all profit from the same discomfort you just felt. They don't need you to believe anything specific. They just need you uncomfortable enough to keep watching. Bob Knodel wasn't a uniquely gullible man. He was a completely ordinary brain at scale. Picture the garage again, late evening. Just the hum of the sealed container. Two men lean over a small screen, waiting for a number that will end an argument. The display flickers. A single line of digits appears, where there was nothing before. For 3 full seconds, neither man says a single word. Then one of them admits, quietly, that the result is hard to accept. In that admission is the entire difference between science and belief compressed into one sentence. Science looks at a problem and asks what it means. Belief looks at it and asks how to make it disappear. Both men in that garage chose the second path, and they weren't finished choosing it. Here's the uncomfortable part of this story that has nothing to do with flat Earth. You have run this exact same loop yourself, probably within the last month. Some piece of evidence showed up that threatened something you already believed about yourself. Maybe it was about your job, your relationship, your health, or your politics. And somewhere in your head, a very old, very quiet mechanism went looking for an exit. You probably didn't build a $20,000 gyroscope to avoid the conclusion. You didn't need to. A single scroll, a single distraction, a single "I'll think about that later" does the same job. The mechanism that kept a grown man arguing with a laser is the same one steering you. The Earth was never really the hard part to prove. It was settled in 240 BC. The hard part was, and still is, watching yourself do exactly what Bob Knodel did.